Okay, so we're making bolognese. Now, the great thing about this recipe is it's a 5-a-day bolognese, so we can actually get in quite a lot of vegetables into this recipe. So I'm going to start by the first thing is what's called the mise en place, by getting everything ready. I've got all my ingredients out ready to prepare. My hands are washed. I've cleaned the surfaces and I've got my apron on. So I'm going to first start with my onions. Now, I normally serves 4 people, use 1 large onion, but I've only got 2 small ones, so which is absolutely fine. So cutting an onion, think about its head and its tail, it's where the root is. You're going to cut it down the middle first of all using the bridge technique. So cut it down the middle. Okay. Then I'm going to cut its top off, its head off. Cut the head off. Then it's a bit easier to peel. We're going to keep its bottom on for now. So just peel the head part off. And then what we're going to do is the lines that are actually on the onion, let me get it a bit closer, are going to use as the guidelines. I'm using the claw technique. I'm not going to cut to the very end here, just going to slice down and then slice downwards. So using the claw technique each time, then I can discard of that part. So I'll do the same to the other parts of the onion. So take the head part off, the top, peel that bit off, the brown part, leave its bottom on, its root. There we go. It just makes it easier to cut. Okay, slice down. Oh, this is strong onion. Where's the watering? Okay. Okay, I'll continue with my other onion. Well, that's a strong onion. So, onion's done. It's been diced. That's all ready. So I'm now going to prepare the rest of my vegetables. Now, leek, courgette, pepper, and I also had a celery in my fridge I thought I'd use as well. Okay, so it's a great thing you could just add anything in. So I'm now going to just prepare the rest of my vegetables. Got quite a big pepper here. So this is how I cut a pepper. Everyone cuts pepper differently. I'm going to just cut the bottom part off. And that way I can then see the seeds. So from here, I'm just going to slice down and around the seeds. And that way, I'm just discarding the core. Okay, and I'm going to dice these. So I'm going to slice them first of all, using the claw technique. And then I dice them. Okay, so I'm going to be dicing all of the vegetables into obviously similar sizes because that's then they'll cook at the same speed. There aren't any vegetables here that will need longer than the others. So okay, so almost there. So it's good, this is called mise en place, it's getting everything ready. You wouldn't start cooking just yet until everything is ready. It makes it a lot quicker and a lot more organised. Okay, so that's the pepper. And I'm keeping my board clean and tidy, and I'm tidying up any excess or rubbish as well. So pepper, onions, done. Now going to the courgette. So top and tail, take the top and the bottom off. I'm going to use the bridge technique to cut in half. Okay. And I'm now going to bridge again. And what I might do is I might bridge it again because it's still quite thick, and then dice. Remember, keep your fingertips out the way in the claw and the bridge technique. Okay, keep doing that until that's all done. And do the same with the celery. So the celery on the top and tail as well. You might want to give it a bit of a rinse under the water if need be, under the tap. That's clean. I'm going to chop it in half. Now these can be quite stringy, so make sure they're cooked out properly. Celery and onion are great as a base for most meals, to be honest. I put them in, I certainly put celery in lasagna as well, and in shepherd's pie. Once it's chopped down and cooked, you don't really notice. Right, I'm actually going to put that in with the courgette, because that's going to go in at the same time. Now the leek, this is how you're going to do the leek. So I'm going to cut the end, top bottom off. Now, depends on where your leek is. I'm going to see how, I might only take this part off. Okay, depends how much extra you've got. I'm then going to cut it in half using the bridge technique as before. Okay, and then I'm just going to peel just the outside layer off. Okay, now you need to be careful because inside here there might be some soil or sand from this growing. So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to run that under the cold tap and just make sure that any sand and dirt is cleaned out. Okay, so I've done that. There wasn't really much there, which is good. So just as before, I'm going to use the claw technique, the bridge, sorry, to cut in half and then to dice in the same way. Now the leek is actually from the onion family. So some leeks can smell just as strong as onions. But even though I've got an onion in here, it doesn't matter. I've got an extra leek. It's another vegetable to include. So in here I've got 5 vegetables. So I'm actually getting, 5 a day just within this meal, which is great. Okay. So I'm going to leave them on the board, and then we're going to go and start taking them over to the hob where we're going to start cooking. Okay, all ready to go. So now that we've all prepared the vegetables, everything's all ready to go. So I'm going to start with, now if you've got the big saucepan to use, you can, but I've got a deep pan here that I like to use. So splash of oil in the pan, get the heat up. And the first thing you want to do is you want to, what's called to saute the onions, okay? Now saute means to fry quickly over a high heat, okay? And you want to do that first before adding the minced beef, okay? Now obviously you can make this with whatever meat you want to, really. It's a beef bolognese, but if you want to use corn mince or you want to use pork mince, you can use whatever you want, really. I wouldn't use sort of chicken mince because obviously then it wouldn't go with the tomato base. Because if you want to use chicken, you can make like a chicken carbonara instead, and that's on my YouTube channel as well. So oil's heated, just get the onions in and get them cooking at a high heat. Okay, so they've been cooking for a couple of minutes. You can see they're starting to sort of catch a bit on the bottom. They've gone a little bit translucent. That's enough. I'm now going to add the beef. So I've got 500 grams of beef here. So I'm going to pop that in. And I'm going to break it up. So keeping it at a high heat, you want to sort of brown the meat as quickly as possible rather than stewing it. Now I've chosen the 5% fat. I want as low fat as possible. If you've got the beef that's quite high in fat, you might have wanted to cook it off first and then drain off any fat. But I know that there's not much fat in here at all, so I don't need to drain anything off. And I only use a little bit of oil to saute the onions. So keep that moving. Obviously it's gone down in temperature a bit because we've added the beef, but it will come back up again. Okay, I'm going to leave that until it all turns brown. Okay, so that's pretty much brown. What I'm now going to do is I'm now going to add the garlic. Now you can either add 1 or 2 cloves of garlic, but I always have one of these in the cupboard. It's lazy garlic, because I use garlic in most of the food. So I'm going to put in a teaspoon. I like a lot of flavour in my food. So I'm going to add it now. I didn't add it with the onion because I didn't want it to burn. So now it's just going to be infused within the mince and the onion. And now I'm going to start adding the vegetables. So you can go the peppers. This is why it's really important to have everything ready. It just makes it so much easier. Just leave that for 30 seconds before adding the next batch of vegetables. Get them mixed in. Okay. Next I'm going to add the celery and the courgette. And what's great about this, it's colourful. You want to eat, your plate should be, they say you should eat the rainbow, not Skittles, but you should eat the rainbow. The more colourful the food, the more nutritious it actually is. So it's great to have. I mean, I could have had a green pepper, but actually I find them quite bitter. So a red or a yellow pepper adds more colour and vibrancy to the dish. Okay, so leave that for about a minute, and then I'm going to add in the leeks. Tidy up as I go. Okay, so leeks next. Then herbs, tin tomatoes, all ready and waiting. Give that a stir. Okay, now the leeks. Now I'm going to use my hand to guide it in. I don't want it to go onto the hob, so a bit at a time. Never use a knife, because if you scrape the knife on the chopping board, you'll blunt your knife. Okay. Stir. You can see why you need a big pan for this. It will sort of, the vegetables will cook down and reduce in size, but you want a nice big pan, especially when you add the tomatoes. I'm just going to let that cook out for a bit. Okay, you can add mixed herbs, but I'm going to add oregano. So scattering of, I always use the cap, about a teaspoon. Okay, that mix, a bit of salt. It's important to season your food. A bit of pepper. Stir. Tomato puree, you want about a tablespoon. Oh, dear me, what a mess. A bit carried away then. Let's give that a clean. Again, you want the depends on what time you add your tomato puree in, because again it can be quite bitter. You want to cook it out a bit, the vegetables in it before you add the liquid. Okay, so that's about a few minutes now, that's started to cook out. So, now on to add an OXO cube. I've got a beef OXO cube here, obviously depending on what meat you're using. You could just use a vegetable OXO cube for meat. I've got slippery hands now. Okay, so all I've got to do now is add my tomatoes. Now, depends how tomatoey you like your bolognese. You can either add 1 tin of tomatoes, then I fill the can up with water and add to it, or if actually there's enough there, you could add 2 tin tomatoes. I'm going to see what it's like with 1 tin and go from there. But again, it's up to you really with this. So add the liquid. Still, it's quite a high temperature. It's not burning just yet. Now obviously with the OXO cube, that's going to thicken it, so it's like a stock. So this is, you definitely need to add water, otherwise it will stick. There's a dog. I'm quite happy with just 1 tin. So I'm now just going to fill this up with water. And 1 can of water. Okay. Now obviously the water will reduce because it will start to evaporate. Okay. I'm going to put a lid on. And now just leave it to simmer. So I'm now going to put the temperature down a bit and let it simmer for about 15 to 20 minutes. Okay. So this has been simmering for about 20-25 minutes now. Let's see, the vegetables are cooked, the meat will be cooked, and to be honest, you can cook it for as long as you want really. It's still got quite a lot of juices there. So if you want to if it's too watery for you, you could turn up the temperature and just evaporate more of the liquid, or you could add a little bit of corn flour to it to thicken it, or but actually I'm quite happy with this. And then all you've got then to do is serve it with your pasta. If you've chosen to make your homemade pasta like in my other video, a boil of boiling water, and it literally just needs 2 or 3 minutes because it's fresh. If you've got the dried pasta, boiling water, plenty of salt in the water, and probably about 15-20 minutes till it's what's called al dente. It's not really soggy, but it's just cooked. It's still got a little bit of bite to it without a crunch. And that's called al dente. All right, so I'll take a photograph at the end when I serve it up, and then all I'm going to put on the top of it to serve is some Parmesan cheese. And you could serve it with a little bit of garlic bread as well. Okay, nice, nutritious and cheap family meal.